Evidence piles up that breast is best, yet the makers of formula milk have just had their licence to push their products in maternity wards renewed. Does the government speak with forked tongue? Good evening. Today, yet another report claiming that breast milk gives babies a head start. But despite the government's declarations about promoting breast over bottle, they've caved in to the formula milk manufacturers who ply their trade in maternity units. The professor who wrote today's report debates with a defender of the formula milk industry and a health manager who wants all advertising of baby milk banned. Also tonight, exclusive evidence. One of the most personal and political issues in child health is the kind of food a mother gives her baby in the first weeks of its life. Yet another report published today opts for breastfeeding, claiming breastfed babies are more intelligent and have better eyesight. These attributes are linked to fatty acids present in mother's milk but not in formula. Some mothers, of course, have to rely on milk products, but government claims it's committed to a national breastfeeding campaign. Yet it's just done a U-turn over banning formula milk manufacturers, whose market is worth £120 million a year, from promoting their products in maternity units. Rajan Datar reports.
If you take the taste, it'll be fine. Come on.
From the moment that Joshua Pilgrim was born, his mother Charmaine had no doubt that he would be fed on breast milk. Joshua was born by caesarean section, but even though initially he had to be fed through a tube, she insisted that only her own milk could be used.
It comes from you, the mother, you know, and then the baby, you'll see the results. The baby cell milk, and there's this 1% that they cannot find, you know, to be part of the substitute milk. So it's a guarantee that the breast milk is the best.
There's 1% of the milk that you produce that you can't find at any other.
Can't find it.
That special ingredient.
Yeah, and that makes it even better, because the breast has everything. You know.
And indeed, scientific research supports Charmaine's view. The government has always claimed to back the breast is best line too, but in spite of all this, health experts are concerned that only 2/3 of women choose to breastfeed from birth, and after 6 weeks, only 1/3 are doing so. Charmaine's midwife says that women are under great pressure to give up breastfeeding.
Women give up breastfeeding, usually from maybe peer pressure. Their mother may not have breastfed and maybe sort of pushing them into giving up. Family commitments, they may have very large families and they find that it doesn't fit in with their family routine. Maybe even pressures of work, that they feel that it wouldn't fit in with the pressure of work. Some ladies find that it doesn't suit them.
While mothers decide whether it does suit them, commercial companies are keen to proffer advice. Here at Hillingdon Hospital in Middlesex, new mothers receive a bounty pack full of free goodies. It also contains information in a commercial context about different options for feeding babies, including bottle feeding. Companies say they spend about £5 million a year promoting products. Pressure groups claim it's twice that, compared with the £50,000 the government spends on promoting breastfeeding. Britain was considered to be one of the strongest supporters of a UN international code which requires governments to protect the rights of women who want to breastfeed. In December 1993, the government issued a draft law proposing a complete ban on advertising artificial milk products to the public. That delighted the Breast is Best lobby. But the law, which eventually came into effect this month, allows manufacturers to continue to promote formula milk through the NHS. And that's left campaigners feeling betrayed.
We're very disappointed with the government because for 14 years they've promised to implement an international code of marketing. Now they've done a complete U-turn and are going to have brought in a law which will virtually allow the companies to promote through the healthcare system, which is exactly what they want.
But not everyone sees commercial input as pernicious. The formula milk company, Milupa, paid for this newborn hearing unit at Hillingdon Hospital. The head of the unit isn't perturbed by the relationship.
I think we need funding. If the National Health Service can't provide it, I think it's naive to believe you must not use commercial sources to get this funding. And if it happens to be a baby food company, whether it be any of the others, and chances were given to all the companies to offer sponsorship. It was Malupa that took this up and gave us the chance to progress.
But back at the Chelsea in Westminster, they're not so keen on ties with commercial companies. They say advertising sends mixed messages to mothers.
Milk marketing companies are very powerful. They have lots of money behind them. Women are very vulnerable, and I think a great number of hospitals are in a position, with finances as they are, that they will be placed in a position where they'll be encouraged to undertake advertising for the wrong reasons.
Labour are calling for a debate next week. They've accused the government of pushing through the new legislation without debate and want to see it revoked.
Well, we're appalled because the government came out with draft proposals saying that they were going to ban promotion of baby milk in the interests of breastfeeding. They've made a complete turnaround, a complete U-turn. We believe that it's from pressure from the baby milk manufacturers, who after all it's a multi-million-pound industry, they don't want to lose market share. We can understand that, but it's in the interests of mothers and children particularly that breastfeeding is promoted. This is to the detriment of that, and we think that the government should change their mind on this.
The government must have hoped that the new law could have passed by with little fuss. Today's medical findings linking intelligence to breast milk can only serve to expose their policy to renewed scrutiny.
Rajan Datar. Well, we asked the government to take part in tonight's programme to explain their position, but they declined. But we have three other people here to debate the issue. First of all, from Glasgow, Professor Forster Coburn, who compiled today's report. Here, representing the manufacturers, Heather Payne, and representing Baby Milk Action, Jean Rowe. Jean Rowe, first of all, why don't you think the government would take on the milk manufacturers? Why won't they do it?
I think they're too powerful, and I also think that they provide a lot of information within the health services, and the government doesn't seem very keen on providing enough resources for health promotion and health education in the health services. I feel very frustrated and very disappointed that this has happened. I've been working in the health service now for about 13 years in public health and have actually seen no improvement in the breastfeeding rates, and in fact they've stabilised now at 65% initiation rate. And I know, as a previous midwife myself, that I got very little help and support with information and advice to give the mothers that was totally unbiased.
Heather Payne, would you like to see a lot more breastfeeding in this country?
Oh, absolutely. We fully support breastfeeding, but we also accept that there is a need for promotion of infant formulas in some way so that mothers have information. But that promotion has to be responsible, and these new regulations will continue to allow responsible advertising.
But you say that you're quoted as saying there's no evidence that more advertising increases sales. So why make these pitch health professionals? After all, in their training, they know about breast milk and they know about formula milk.
Well, advertising is important for any product if you want to make differences between one product and another, and it's also an important aspect of providing information. But I think what's wrong in this argument is everybody thinks that if we ban advertising of infant formulas, ban all promotion, that this will mean that the breastfeeding rate in this country will go up. It simply won't happen.
Professor Coburn, do you agree that if you ban advertising, it'll make no difference at all to breastfeeding rates?
Oh, I think it is almost bound to have some effect. Whether it will have a major effect, I'm not so sure. I think it.
Disagree.
Carry on, Professor Coburn.
I think it is important that the value of breast milk to the human infant is emphasised, and that is obviously something that the breast milk industry is not, the formula industry is not going to do.
But Heather Payne, when they banned advertising in Norway, breastfeeding rates did go up.
Ah, but you could also take other countries, Eastern Bloc countries, where they've had no advertising at all, and the breastfeeding rates have remained very, very low. The message to me that comes out of that is that it's the role of health professionals and the support of breastfeeding that is actually more important than what the industry does. But of course we must have controls, and that's what these regulations will do. They will provide controls, extra controls over and above of what we've got now.
So what was the pitch you made to the government to make sure that they would not invoke this ban, which after all they'd been in the vanguard of promoting this ban 12 months ago?
Well, you know, we made no pitch. We obviously lobbied and gave our arguments, and they took on board many of our particular arguments. But really, I think they've seen common sense. And at the end of the day, it's mothers don't want a ban on advertising. they want the freedom to be able to see advertisements, to make that informed choice. I think it's insulting to say to mothers you can't see advertisements.
Is there a tyranny about breastfeeding, Jean Rowe, among certain sectors of the community?
Well, I don't think that's actually true. I think there are very many women out there that wanted to breastfeed but got very little support, I must say, within the healthcare system, because the resources are so poor, and also the training of health professionals was not about breastfeeding. I was brought up in a bottle feeding culture, and I knew much more about bottle feeding than I knew about breastfeeding. Equally, there aren't enough educational resources that go in to support breastfeeding.
Well, Professor Coburn, in the area you work in, particularly in Glasgow, you talk about a 64% rate here, but in Glasgow, of course, it's a much lower rate than that.
Yes.
How do you move on from a system where health professionals are educated by the infant milk manufacturers?
I don't think that's entirely true. I think during the last 2 years, there has been a tremendous effort by midwives and health visitors, general practitioners, and hospital doctors to try and reverse this appalling trend in Glasgow that less than 10% of babies are breastfeeding at the end of the first week in some parts of Glasgow.
But how do you actually go about it when you're faced with the might of the manufacturing industry coming in with, as it must be said, free products in hospital?
Yes, it is a matter of education of the general public as well as the professionals.
Heather Payne, if breast is an option for a woman, do you concede that it's best?
Of course, breast is always the best option for a woman, but I must first say that we do not provide any free samples or free products in hospitals. It's one of the key aspects of our code of practice that we had for 10 years. And one of the reasons why I would refute the fact that advertising might, if we banned advertising, there would be an increase in breastfeeding. In fact, over the past 10 years, we've had quite strict controls over what we do, voluntary controls. Some people might have wanted them stricter, but we did nevertheless have controls. We've done everything we were asked to do, and unfortunately it's had no effect on breastfeeding.
Do you know? No effect at all?
No, I mean, a voluntary control on advertising really hasn't worked. As we can see from the film, one hospital will allow advertising, another hospital won't. I mean, voluntary it ends up putting much more pressure on health professionals to actually take a much more ethical stance in relation to advertising. Also, I think it's an abuse of the healthcare system using a third party to advertise for the baby milk companies. And I think health professionals should be actually spending more time on health promotion and proper health education.
Professor Coburn, do you think it's an abuse of the health profession?
I think the health professionals are in a position to take a balanced view of the evidence they get. That's part of their training. There are undoubtedly, though, lopsided pressures on the written information that is made available. I would hope that the Department of Health will continue in its efforts to produce good information for professionals to follow.
But would you like to see a ban of advertising among health professionals of manufacturers' information in hospitals?
I'm not in general in favour of bans. I think that stricter control of the behaviour of some of the milk companies' activities is necessary, I'm afraid.
Thank you all very much indeed. There are reports today of